All right, man. The next thing I wanted to bring up was before we actually started the interview, you mentioned that you've visited close to 80 convicted murders, and you've actually traveled cross country just to make some of these visits. Can you name some of the more known ones that people listening would recognize?
Well, I mean, obviously the biggest fish in the American true crime fishbowl would be, Charles Manson. And yeah, I visited Charles Manson. I'd say rather extensively. And in 2006, I saw him probably 35 times. Anywhere from 4.5 to 5 hours at a time. And that would be the most recognizable name. You mentioned the traveling cross country. I did drive or fly out to New York and went and saw Michael Alec. He was the club kid. They made the movie Party Monster, which Macaulay Culkin actually portrayed his character. That was being I live in California, that's 3,000 miles away.
Jeez.
I've traveled to Ohio to visit William Sapp and the Cleveland Strangler Anthony Sowell. I've gone to Texas and seen now executed killer serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells and
Well, you seen
tourniquet
him
killer Anthony
executed.
Mueller. I'm sorry.
Did you say you seen him get executed?
No, no, no. I wasn't. Sells and I had a nasty falling out. I have witnessed executions, but Tommy Lynn Sells wasn't one of them.
Okay.
And but he was certainly a well-known crime figure. Most of my visiting takes place here in California, and I mean the first inmate I ever visited was Night Stalker Richard Ramirez, and I mean he's
Wow.
of at the time living inmates, he was one of the most notorious next to Manson. So
Wow.
I get a lot. I mean, I track a lot of miles on the car. I mean, even here in California, I'll drive down to San Diego, which is depending on traffic, 5.5, 7.5 hour drive. Drive up to San Quentin State Prison, where California death row is, and visited with. I can't even begin to list. There's just when you get to that number of 80, it's kind of like thinking of how many girls you've had sex with. They all just kind of get jumbled together. But those are a few of the more notable names, I suppose.
Dude, I can't even imagine talking to Charlie Manson. Um, can you give us a crazy story when you visited him? I mean, you got to, dude.
Well, I mean, gosh, there's so many different stories I could think of with Manson. I'm trying to just think of one off the top of my head. I remember one time he called me and he asked me what he could do for me, and I said, man, don't, I should be, you should be, I should be asking you, what I can do for you. You're the one in prison. And his response was, I'm not in prison. I'm on the phone talking to you. And kind of paused, and he goes, the prison concept is in your mind. And I had done some state prison time as a youngster, and he says, I know you've been to prison, and you did a couple of years. He goes, but it's different when you're here and you depend on these walls. No, he said, at first you hate these walls, but then you kind of depend on them. He goes, I'm not in prison. I guess that's not really a crazy story. Listen, here's one. I was visiting with Night Stalker Richard Ramirez. This was May 7th, 2005. I remember it because it was Susan Atkins' birthday, the deceased Manson girl.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were discussing serial killer David Berkowitz, Richard and I, and he said, they tried to. Richard Ramirez was telling me, they tried to take Berkowitz's life. They tried to cut his throat, and I said, yeah, they did. And he said, he's become a Christian. And my response to that was, yeah, what a fucking sellout. And Richard put up his hand and shook his head a little bit and said, no, 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 it happens, it happens. And I asked Richard, why hasn't it happened to you then? And Richard kind of looks down and got this little smirk on his face, and without tilting his head up, just put his eyes back up to mine, and he said, I guess you could say I'm still on the same page. And fuck, man, when he
Damn.
said that, it was just chilling. And it's like, yeah, no remorse, not, oh, I'm sorry, or hey, I want to be saved. yeah, if Richard said if he got out, he would just want to go to a beach and in Hawaii and look at the water. No, that guy, he had a case for what he did, and that was, I remember it was one of my first visits, and it was just intense. When you walk up to the small concrete window and there's Ramirez sitting, and he throws up the sign of the horns at you. You can go to a concert and see 3,000 people throw up the sign of the horns, going to see a band like Deicide. But when you're sitting there with, Ramirez and he's throwing the horns at you, I mean, that guy was, doing some serious shit.
Yeah,
And
he believed it, man. So
I'm sorry?
he when he's doing it, he actually believes it, like the real symbol. He isn't just throwing it up for the cliche metalhead shit.
Oh yeah, no, that was for sure. And I just remember, when I was driving home, and I'm thinking to myself, that was really him. That was really him, and it was just, I mean, it was exciting. And this was back, 2005. We're talking 11 years ago. I've since kind of lost that, excitement that comes along with, like a starstruckness, I guess you could say. Back then, it was so new, and you're walking into prisons. You're meeting Charles Manson. You're meeting Dorothea Puente, Roy Norris, all these crime figures. At first it was very exciting, and because you go into a new facility, it's a new procedure. But now it's just kind of become every day. And I visit a lot of non-high-profile people, but yeah, the Ramirez story, that was a good one. So I hope that works for you.
Oh hell yeah, dude! Actually, still on that note, does I guess how can I say like the interviews that most people see like on YouTube or the news or whatever, is that like how he really is, or is that all for show, or is that like how he was with you, like what normal people would see, like if they go watch a Richard Ramirez YouTube video or a biography, and did he is like I said, I don't even know how to question it, but is he like the same as he was in like your typical videos you see with him, or was he like more laid back?
There's only a handful of Ramirez interviews that I've actually seen, and when I saw Richard, he was very soft spoken, and he was oddly enough well spoken. When you see him in trial, he has that very thick, Hispanic type accent. And when I saw him, he had definitely lost some of that. I remember his fingernails were very neatly trimmed. He at one time he came out, his shirt was misbuttoned, like he had actually buttoned it one wrong. But he was, he was clean shaven. He didn't, he presented himself well, and he wasn't crazy. Because our visit was non-contact, he did not want to discuss his case really in any capacity.
Yeah.
So it was it's not like comparing Manson. Manson in his interviews sometimes seems like he's completely crazy, but if you get to interview, like back when they would allow interviews, you could interview an inmate for 6 hours, and let's say in that 6-hour period, Charlie was calm, answering questions, and then for 30 minutes kind of went a little overboard. They can edit that and make him look like he's plumb crazy. I mean, with the Geraldo interview, they actually snipped, if you get the raw footage, they took answers to other questions and switched them around. And that's how they presented to the public, and it's not even real. It's they can do whatever they want. So, but not trying to move from Ramirez to Manson, but I had visits with Manson where we just talked like you and I are talking, very matter of factly. We also had the conversations where he was talking about the Spanish captain coming over to take down the mafioso in Vincent Bugliosi's court and all that too, but a lot of the times we would have just very matter-of-fact, plain-as-day conversations. They are human beings. People seem to forget that these aren't monsters or warlocks or demons. They're human beings. So they, oddly enough, they're kind of just like you or I, because that's exactly what they are.
Yeah, see, like I'm doing that series on the channel right now, so that's why it's like crazy to talk to somebody that's actually sat down with them, because I'm looking up, videos that are already on YouTube and stuff that's online that could have been tampered with. So that's why I was really excited that you were willing to sit down and I'm actually talking to, somebody that's been there. It isn't something that could have been edited to look how they wanted it to look. So that's like why I seemed all giddy to ask what they what you know are they really the way we see them? You know.
Well, I mean, they try to create that larger than life, the monster with no feelings, and and all that. And that's just not the case. I mean, I've met guys, and it's 30 years after their convictions. They're not, wanting to tie up and torture teenage girls anymore. Some of them are genuinely ashamed and do feel a great sense of remorse. And I've also met people by the same token in prison just as long, and if they were let out, would go straight back to killing people. So, it's a again, it's individual to individual, and the media portrayal is sensationalism. So I don't buy into it very much. I will say though, I feel extremely privileged, and I'm very happy and proud of the interactions that I've had, because I know that you can't get I couldn't certainly get what I've got from reading a crime book or watching a YouTube video. That's just not it wasn't what I wanted to do, and it wasn't what I set out to do, and I'm glad that it's what I have not had to do.
Yeah.
I've been able to make my own experiences, in my head, my own YouTube channel.
Yeah. Now, is it safe to say that you would actually consider some of the inmates that you visit like a friend? Like, you talk to them on the phone. Like, you would actually consider them like a friend.
No, no, for sure. People try to say, "Oh, that person's a sociopath. They don't understand what friends are," and I'm just here to say all that classification is just bullshit. It's just something to give a guy a doctor's degree, and for him to be able to seem important. I do consider some of the inmates that I visit like family. I mean, I feel that close to them. Some of these guys I've known for well over a decade, been visiting them for years, and they're not a collectible to me. Like, I'm not trying to get items from them to make a bunch of money. There's not enough money in this anyway. It's something, the collecting aspect has nothing to do with my visits, and I just genuinely enjoy. When you go to visit somebody who's been in prison for 30 years, and nobody's gone to see him except the occasional attorney or reporter. You tell that person, "Hey, I want nothing from you. I don't want your artwork. I don't want to sell your letters. I just want to talk to you, and be a friend." You'd be surprised. Don't get me wrong. Some of them try to take advantage of that. They mistake the kindness for weakness, and an asshole's an asshole. But by the same token, you'll meet people that just genuinely want a friend. Some of these guys have never had a friend, so it feels to me very rewarding. And yeah, I do consider some of them friends, and some of them, to be even closer than that.
Oh, that's pretty cool, man.